This car is doing 100 miles per hour, and it hasn't moved a single inch. In 1962, one man found a glitch in the laws of physics that terrified the NHRA so badly they rewrote the entire rulebook in 15 minutes to stop him. This isn't a cheat, it's a trap door. This is the jumping jack. Back then, if you didn't have a Chrysler Hemi, you were a ghost. These were nitro-breathing displacement monsters that didn't just race, they humiliated everyone else. But Pete Robinson didn't have a Hemi. He had a small block Chevy and a brain that treated the rulebook like a suggestion. To beat the giants, he had to skip the hardest part of the race entirely. The Hemi Wall, 1962. It is 1962. Drag racing in America is a war of displacement. Whoever has the biggest, baddest Chrysler Hemi wins, period. The nitro-breathing monsters line up at the U.S. Nationals at Indianapolis Raceway Park, and they don't just beat you, they humiliate you before you leave the line. Every drag race is decided in the first 60 feet. The car that can transfer its power to the pavement fastest, without spinning, without stumbling, that car wins. Every other car loses time right there, fighting itself, fighting inertia, fighting physics. Pete Robinson decided not to fight physics. He decided to cheat it. The physics, why it works. Here is what nobody tells you about drag racing. The enemy is not the other car. The enemy is inertia. Every pound of rotating mass in that drivetrain, the flywheel, the drive shaft, the tires, the wheels, resists acceleration. It fights you from the moment the clutch drops. Your engine has to first spin that dead weight up before it can ever move the car down the track. That resistance has a name. Physicists call it moment of inertia. Drag racers call it lost time. Think of it like a playground merry-go-round. It's brutally hard to get moving from a dead stop, but once it's spinning, you cannot stop it. Pete Robinson did not want to push the merry-go-round. He wanted to jump on while it was already doing Mach 1. So he asked one question that nobody else on the planet was asking. What if the tires were already spinning at 100 miles per hour before the car moved at all? What if you could skip the worst part of the race entirely? The invention, the jumping jack. The device was brutally simple. Folding jack stands mounted to the rear axle of his Dragmaster chassis. A locked rear end, no spider gears, no differential, both tires spinning as one rigid unit. You stage the car, you pull a lever, the rear of the dragster lifts off the ground, just 1 to 2 inches, just enough. The tires are now airborne. Pete dumps the clutch. He floors it. The engine spins the tires free of any load, any traction, any resistance from the asphalt. The rotational energy builds. It compounds. The tires are not spinning lazily. They are screaming at the RPM equivalent of 100 miles per hour of road speed, while the car sits motionless on its front wheels, smoke pouring off slicks that aren't even touching the ground. Every ounce of power the engine can produce goes directly into those tires. No acceleration phase, no tire slip, no traction management, just pure stored energy, coiled tight like a spring the size of a Buick. The car is a loaded weapon pointed at a quarter mile of asphalt. Pete Robinson is holding the trigger. The day it happened, Indianapolis, 1962. NHRA announcer Bernie Partridge is standing at the microphone at Indianapolis Raceway Park. He has been calling drag races for years. He has seen everything. He looks down at the line and his brain breaks. He says, live on the PA system to thousands of people, his tires are smoking and the car is just sitting there. Nobody laughs. Nobody knows what to say. The crowd watches white smoke pour off the rear slicks of Pete Robinson's dragster while the car sits completely stationary, engine howling, tires leaving burn marks in the air above pavement they aren't even touching. Pete pulls the lever. The jack stands fold. 100 miles per hour of stored rotational energy drops onto the asphalt all at once. The car does not accelerate, it teleports. There is no tire slip, there is no wheel spin. The tires are already moving faster than the car needs them to be, so the moment they contact the track, they grip and they pull, and the dragster erupts down the quarter mile like it was fired from a rifle. The NHRA refused to announce his elapsed time. They refused to put the number on the PA. What witnesses reported, what the data suggested, was a pass so quick it was probably running low 8s or possibly high 7s in a gas-burning car in 1962, when the quickest fuelers on the planet were barely cracking into that territory. The run was so fast that announcing it would have caused a riot. The ban. 6 words. Pete Robinson pulled onto the return road. Before his engine had cooled, the PA crackled with something that wasn't his elapsed time. Would Pete Robinson please report to Ed Eaton immediately? Ed Eaton was the NHRA Eastern Division Director and the event boss. NHRA Technical Director Bill Dismuke was standing right next to him. Pete walked into that meeting and told them the system was safe. The car ran arrow straight every single time. 0 handling problems, 0 danger to the crowd. He had tested it, he had refined it, it worked. It didn't matter. Dismuke and Eaton didn't table the issue. They didn't schedule a review. They didn't form a committee. They rewrote the rulebook on the spot, right there before Pete Robinson's tires had stopped smoking. Rear tires must maintain constant contact. 6 words. Permanent, immediate, retroactive to 30 minutes ago. The jumping jack was dead. The danger, why it terrified everyone. The danger was real. If one jack stand released a fraction of a second before the other, if the geometry was off by a single degree, if the mechanism had any play in it at all, 100 miles per hour of stored rotational energy would apply unevenly to the rear axle. The car would torque steer, instantly, violently, at a speed it hadn't even achieved yet, but was now fully committed to. Into a guardrail, into the crowd, into whatever was in its path. No reaction time, no correction available. You were either straight or you were done. Pete knew that. He built it anyway. He was the test pilot every single time. He never put someone else in that car when he had a new idea. Don Garlits said it plainly in National Dragster. Pete was always on the edge of the envelope. He took the risk. He was Chuck Yeager in a fire suit. The legend, who Sneaky Pete really was. The jumping jack was only one chapter. Pete Robinson had been treating the rulebook as a suggestion his entire career. He ran a vacuum pump system on his cars, bleeding air from under the body to generate mechanical downforce on tracks where sticky tires couldn't find grip. He obsessively drilled, ground, and shaved weight from every component he touched. He once said, "Anything that falls to the ground when you let it go from your hand is way too heavy to be on my race car." He beat Don Garlits in match races with a small block Chevy against a Nitro Hemi. He ran an 8.14 elapsed time at Lyons Drag Strip in 1964 that left people speechless. He won top eliminator at the NHRA Nationals in 1961, practically unknown, running times so quick the officials initially refused to announce them to the crowd. Then he won anyway. The NHRA ranked him 22nd on their list of the 50 greatest drivers in the history of the sport. Their own founder, Wally Parks, said, "Pete was an innovator whose discoveries were the leading edge of technology." They said that after he was gone. At the 1971 NHRA Nationals at Pomona, Pete Robinson's front-engine dragster exploded. He didn't survive it. The what if and the final word. The NHRA's ground contact rule has been on the books for over 60 years. It covers every sanctioned drag event in America. It was written in 15 minutes in a trailer in Indianapolis because one man with a lever made the most powerful sanctioning body in motorsport sprint to a table and pick up a pen. What would the jumping jack look like today? electronic actuators releasing both sides within microseconds of each other, launch control systems pre-spinning the tires to the precise equivalent of 150 miles per hour before the drop, a dragster that hits the asphalt with its tires already synced, bypassing every millisecond of the acceleration curve, frame perfectly level, zero torque steer, nothing but stored energy converting to forward motion in a single violent instant. The rule would still ban it, because the rule exists specifically to stop this exact idea from evolving. Sneaky Pete Robinson didn't just race cars, he raced the rulebook, he raced physics, he raced the entire institutional weight of American organized motorsport, and he made it blink first. For one afternoon in 1962, the car sat still, and the world moved. Subscribe and drop a comment below. What is the most illegal piece of tech you have ever seen at a local track? Because I guarantee it doesn't hold a candle to this.